What's up, Guardians? Renegades is officially out. It is currently day 3 of the expansion. Just turned over the day at noon, so we're on daily reset on Thursday morning. And we have quite a few weapons that came out this expansion, so I want to go over and talk about the ones that you should be getting and what you'll be looking for on each weapon. These are not in any particular order other than some of the spoilery ones for the Dawning and Call to Arms later in the season are at the end. So if you don't want to see those, I will try and denote when they're going to be coming up. But for the most part, every weapon that we know of is in here, minus the dungeon weapons. That'll be a separate video once the dungeon comes out and we see what they are. They were and should have been leaked prior by the content creators who went to Bungie. So if you are really looking for that, you can probably find the information. However, I want to go through just every weapon that is in here and talk about what we are getting with it. So we're starting off with Dutybound here. Dutybound is going to be, I believe, a Pinnacle weapon. It is a kinetic 600 RPM auto rifle, a great reprise, one of my favorite weapons from year 1 of Destiny 2. And it comes in with a couple of origin traits. We got Problem Solver and Vanguard Determination, the same ones as we have had since Edge of Fate for the Pinnacle Ops. So every holofoil weapon, and I have seen this drop from the expansion, and it is dropping in the portal, has Accelerated Assault, which just seems to be the holofoil trait that gets added on for this expansion, where dealing sustained damage with this weapon loads a small amount of ammo from reserves or removes heat and increases damage. Kind of a really crazy powerful origin trait, all things considered. Adding ammo to the mag and increasing damage is basically what you want your what you want your origin trait to be doing. So this is kind of awesome, and it seems like almost any weapon that came out this expansion can get it, minus a couple. There are some exceptions, but generally if you are able to get a holofoil, this will drop on the holofoil. Now, for Dutybound specifically, you have the combination of 4 times triple tap again, if you want to be going for that. It was kind of a funny roll that it got before. It's not my favorite roll on Dutybound, but it is unique. It's unique and it's a funny roll that you can go for. I think Bewildering Burst or Stopping Power, which is a new perk that increases the stagger this does to targets and gives you bonus damage against low HP targets, can be equally as viable as 4th times, but I think 4th times and maybe Rampage or Onslaught is your pick here. Rampage did get buffed so that it down decays 1 stack at a time instead of all at once. Onslaught is obviously just a very useful perk, and there are a couple new ones in here that are less valuable. We have All-Star, which is a damage increase and an auto load for picking up ammo, and then we have Adhesive Ordnance, which is the same thing except you get 1 shot. I think just going for a regular damage perk is probably your best bet. And then you can choose between 4th times, Bewildering, and Stopping Power. I think a Bewildering Burst Rampage could be pretty interesting overall. Now, for our blaster weapons, for everybody who knows what a blaster weapon is, they have heat generation as one of their base mechanics instead of a magazine that you are balancing heat. They're all pretty interesting. They function mostly identically to other weapons. They have their own little mini games that you can play. They are basically all auto-loading to some degree, since the heat can decay in your back pocket. So I like the archetype. They do a bit more damage to powerful targets, and they have a unique perk set. I like them. They're not necessarily better or worse than regular weapons in all cases, but just so we are talking about them, these are the Renegades weapons that you get from doing the Lawless Frontier, the campaign, and things of that nature. The M17 Fast Talker is a kinetic stasis submachine gun, and it is pretty good. I haven't used it a ton. I've been mostly using the lightsaber like everybody else, and that's kind of a downside of most of these stasis, strand, and kinetic weapons this expansion. It's competing with the lightsaber. It will not compete with the crossbow later, so if you're into the Wookiee crossbow, or you want to be running anything else just at all, obviously these are still good to pick up. You're not going to be running the lightsaber forever. You'll probably change it up whenever you feel like it. Now, the M17 Fast Talker is a 900 RPM. I think it is lightweight damage. I don't think it's an adaptive, but you can't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't damage tested to see what archetype it is. But it has a pretty decent perk pool going on here. One of the things to note of Kill Clip, and this is going to be for all heat weapons, anything that works on a reload will activate when you press R on the heat weapon. You do not have to fully empty it. You can hit it and then immediately cancel the venting animation, and that will count for kill clip, heal clip, or anything of that nature. I think You're going to want this mostly for PvE. Is there a PvP section for this? You might be able to get away with something like Delicate Tuning or Killing Wind. Could be pretty interesting, as well as Dynamic Sways in here. And then maybe a Tap the Trigger, Master of Arms, Sword Logic, Target Lock. All that's like PvP viable. I'm mostly concerned about PvE, and I'm going to talk about mostly PvE stuff going forward with the rest of this. I think Demo and Crystalline Corpse Bloom is your best pick for this SMG. Crystalline Corpse Bloom is a really interesting perk. Headstone obviously works on every kill. This one needs to get a kill first and then works on rapid kills, but it doesn't require headshots. So I think for an SMG, great middle ground, great stasis integration. Demo is obviously a good pick. If you don't want Demo, I think you're picking Attrition Orbs, and then you can kind of do whatever you want with this last column, or whatever your preference is, if you don't choose to go Crystalline Corpse Bloom. For Compact Defender, I think Destabilizing Rounds Repulsor Brace is probably your best pick. This is a 360 RPM sidearm. It is primary ammo and a heat weapon. So this is Leia's gun from the Star Wars movies, if you have seen those. It is void, so it has a little bit of that integration. I think Destabilizing Rounds being in the left column is a great opportunity to go ahead and take a damage perk in the right, like Frenzy. I think it's a great pairing. Double damage perks, basically. Repulsor Brace is obviously the go-to choice if you want that integration with Void Overshields, but there's not much else in the left column that beats Destabilizing Rounds. A lot of PvP perks, and then Proximity Power if you want some melee stats. Generally, though, I'd be going for this kind of extra double damage perks. The refurbished A499 is a kinetic heavy ammo sniper rifle. Super unique weapon. I think this is definitely something you're going to want to pick up. It is unique entirely. There is nothing that competes with this in its slot. There is no other legendary kinetic heavy weapon. There is no other legendary heavy sniper rifle. So picking this up is a great pick. It does about as much damage as a ×4 Catalyst Izzy's shot. A little bit less, just very slightly. Higher fire rate because you do reload one at a time. It doesn't have amazing perks, but it does fill a unique niche, and it's work with things like Darcy. So I'm really interested to see how this progresses in the meta. Obviously, damage testing isn't fully done yet, so we don't know for sure, but I think this is going to be a great pick. Flared Magwell, I think, is the thing that you want here. Reload speed is paramount for getting out more shots, and that thing has super low base reload. I think if you're going for damage, and that's what you want to be going for, your only real option is Aggregate Charge, which gives you 10% damage. I think it's actually 11% damage per debuff on the target. If you're using this for boss damage, you probably have Weaken on. You probably have Jolted them. That'll be 22% easily. You can spec into 3 on your own, but for any really big damage phase, you'll have a way to do it. Everything else on here doesn't really increase your damage. Box Breathing is here, but it takes a while to proc, so I don't really think it's worth it to wait for that. Auto-loading is also an option if you are down to do a rotation with this. That could be pretty effective if you have a decent special ammo weapon. And then you have a lot of things that kind of work with ad clear, like Ambitious Assassin is a decent ad clear, major clear option, or maybe Champion Killer. Something like Ancillary Ordnance also does that. Envious Assassin is good for burst damage, but not in long term. And then the left column really doesn't have much. It's got Flashbang with Bewildering Burst, and then Outlaw. Gut Shot straight if you want to go for body shots. In a damage phase, none of these really do anything for you, unfortunately. However, it is still a must-get weapon, in my opinion. Uncivil Discourse is our first legendary special ammo hand cannon. Once again, energy weapon. This one is super cool, goes in the same slot as Ariana's. It is arc. It does have a scope, and it kind of functions like a Forerunner, except instead of being a sidearm, it's a hand cannon. The stats in this thing, incredible. Truly like crazy stats. I went for a very balanced stat spread here just to show you what it can look like, and it's basically 90s across the board, right? Super, super cool, very good feeling weapon. Its damage is similar to that of a rocket sidearm, though. It doesn't really do a ton of major boss damage. So I don't really recommend it for that. If you do want to try and build into the damage, Precision Instrument with Lucky Pants is probably your go-to play. Going for Keep Away, generally speaking, you can keep this up in PvE if you want. Outlaw's also a good pick, and then maybe something like Cooling Baubles, which is if you pick up an orb or an elemental pickup, it will discharge heat. This thing does really quickly dissipate heat passively, as it is a dynamic heat weapon. That's what it does. I think go-to is Precision Instrument. For general use case, if you're going to be killing adds and majors with it, Jolting Feedback is obviously also a really great pick, and that might be my go-to, because I'm not really looking to use this thing for damage, although I'm sure you can if you so choose. The modified B7 pistol is another Stasis weapon. This is a primary energy hand cannon. You can get this from the Cabal on Stasis Outpost. If you join them, they drop it more often. They have a 180 RPM, so this is kind of like Word of Crota, Posterity, right? Interesting perk combo. The number one pick here is probably going to be Firefly Headstone. This is the same thing as Solemn Remembrance, which was the comp up in last season, so if you didn't get that, this is now available to you. The Headstone will spawn, and then Firefly will explode and detonate it. Really cool, double dipping into Solar and Stasis a bit. If you don't want to do that, I think Crystalline Corpse Bloom, also a great pick here. On a hand cannon, I feel like Headstone is a little bit better because you're more consistently getting headshots. But you can go like Demo Crystalline Corpse Bloom, Demo Headstone, also great picks, just for general use cases with Stasis. If you just want to use this as a weapon and you're not really worried about elemental synergy, you just want damage, Firefly Thermal Atomization, double splash perk, and damage perk. Thermal atomization, when you are at high heat, which is generally over 50%, I think, 40-50%, you'll start noticing the explosions on this. When you're at high heat, enemies will explode when they die, and you'll get increased damage. So, I don't know what the total number is. It's got to be more than 10%. It's probably at 15 when you're at the higher end. But thermal atomization, causing an explosion, increasing your damage, and Firefly giving you increased damage and faster cooldown on your energy. Double dipping all around. Sounds like a very good ad clear weapon. Something is a legendary kinetic sniper rifle. This is an aggressive 72 RPM sniper rifle available from the portal, I believe. It should just be regular playlist here because there's no Pinnacle Ops modifier. Once again, you'll see the hollow foil trait is also here for the origin. Now, as sniper rifles go, generally Praedyths and the supremacy from the raids being rapid fires are preferred. I am a fan of the 72 RPMs, like they do high damage per shot. The DPS isn't the same, and I think our rapid fires have more ammo overall, and they come ahead just in all categories realistically. However, these do feel really good for burst damage if trying to kill champions quickly. These do really come in clutch and do that really, really well. So it's got some interesting perk stats. It's not the go-to thing. You can get, I believe, 4 in the mag. If we go into with appended mag, we can try and throw on a bandolier or backup mag. You can get up to 5 if you have the enhanced backup mag, which is pretty decent. And you can combine that with something like Kinetic Tremors, which should proc in 2 hits while enhanced. And you've got triple tap on this sniper because it is an aggressive. It does not get 4 times. It gets triple tap, a little bit less effective. So you can do that, and that is a great setup. If you are down to shoot some red bars first, Redirection is also a fantastic pick, giving you double damage as long as you have 2 stacks when it's enhanced, or 3 with regular, up to 30 stacks. So if you do have it enhanced and you stack it up all the way, 15 double damage shots, that's quite a lot. Especially with triple tap giving you some more ammo. That should be pretty awesome. Bewildering Burst is here if you need something that will just help with general ad clear. And then you've got something interesting like Adhesive Ordnance, maybe if you want that extra exhaust. Honing is also an option, but I think your go-to is triple tap K Tremors. This one is apparently loading really slowly. All or Nothing is also a heat weapon from the expansion. I don't know how something got in the middle of this. That's my bad. All or Nothing is the 3-round burst Strand pulse rifle. You get one off rip in the campaign. This one is Boba Fett's blaster. Pretty interesting. I mean, we got a lot of Strand pulses. So generally, I don't like a lot of the Strand perks. Hatchling has gotten a couple of buffs because Threadlings have gotten better. So Hatchling is probably the best it's ever been. Does really good damage, all things considered. And now will not suicide into an enemy that's already dead. So it's a bit better in that use case. Generally, though, if you're not on Strand, I wouldn't build into it that much. Tear is here if you want to build into Sever. And Sever is a very strong effect. However, I feel like thermal atomization is just strong here, as you are getting quite a lot of heat generation on a pulse rifle. You get a decent mag size, so you get the halfway point reasonably early. So you compare that with Firefly again for double explosions, and I think I had one of these in the campaign, and it was pretty fun. If you want to go for Tear Firefly, also a great pick. The Strand weapon from, there was like a Pulse a couple seasons ago that had this. It was like Relentless, I think, had this from the Prophecy when we did the dungeon refresh. But it's a good pairing. It's just not, incredible. It is a good Pulse. I would recommend probably just thermal atomization, double splash perks. Sounds very, very strong. Hawthorne's Field Forge Shotgun is a reprise. It used to be a kinetic lightweight. It is now a stasis lightweight. I'm kind of sad about that. I liked kinetic's extra damage against everything that's not, champions and bosses. But you now have stasis perks on this. It is our first stasis shotgun that's on a slug that gets choke clip. So if you're not a fan of slugs, you now have a choke clip option for shotguns. My expectation is that this is going to freeze in 2 shots because I believe the slug shotgun does. So you can freeze in 2 hits. You can get lead from gold. I think that's just the default really awesome pick. Choke clip is very, very useful. As a backup, you do have Crystalline Corpse Bloom if you're going to be ready to slay out with this thing. This can get you a lot more aggressive freezing, as the crystal will spawn and instantly freezing thing it hits. Slide Shot is also here if you are down for that to get you some more ammo. And then you've got something like Discord as well. It could be an interesting option, like a Discord lead from gold. Can get you a lot of ammo uptime if you want to go kill ads. If this was in the left column, I feel like a Discord Crystalline Corpse Bloom would be really strong. Not the case in this situation. Lightweights are not the best PvE shotgun archetype. So generally speaking, I think lead from gold chill clip is just your best pick, and then maybe Crystalline Corpse Bloom if you want to lean into more stasis. Riptide is also a reprise going into the Crucible. You have Crystalline Corpse Bloom and Choke Clip on this as well. We don't have lead from gold on this anymore, which is what I use on my Riptide. So you got auto-loading, you have overflow. I think auto-loading's been nerfed since Riptide originally came out. It's still a good pick, especially if you want to go for Choke Clip on this. If you have a Lionfish, I don't think this competes with Lionfish realistically. Wildcard is good. I think Problem Solver is better, just overall. So realistically, if you're picking this up, you're looking for overflow, Choke Clip. Crystalline Corpse Bloom is unique to this for rapid fires, and you could, as an option, have controlled burst and switch between them. If you're trying to consolidate your fusion rifles to have a rapid fire with controlled burst and Crystalline Corpse Bloom and Choke Clip, and you don't already have something close to that, and you're okay with overflow or autoloading, I think that's your go-to. The unique thing about this is probably overflow, Corpse Bloom. That's kind of what you're looking for. Monody 44 is a new energy void high impact frame. I got one of these from opening Lawless vouchers. It's fine. I really don't like high impact fusions in PvE. They feel like they take way too long to charge. They have decent damage, decent range. Like this thing can kind of snipe people. If you're shooting red bars to this, it does do that very effectively. Don't get me wrong. Just generally not what I'm looking for a special weapon. However, you got, destabilizing round repulsor brace, so if you want some ad clear, you do have controlled burst here. It's got attrition orb, which I think is interesting. I haven't used attrition orbs on a fusion personally. It does have Discord. Good luck getting that off, with the charge rate on one of these, but maybe a Discord successful warm-up could be pretty fun, or surrounded. There's a couple plays you could do with this, but generally speaking, I feel like there are better void fusions in the game, but this does have like a repulsor withering gaze, which is something like gravitic arrest did not have in Vespers. So that might be a go-to pick if you want something that can consistently give you overshields, or destabilizing rounds. Maybe if you're playing like a Gear Falcon Hunter or playing with those new Hunter boots, this could be an interesting pick. We also have another legendary stasis weapon. This is a fusion rifle with the horizontal spreads and aggressive frame. Generally, not a huge fan of the horizontal spread. It is pretty decent at killing red bars. It does do decent damage if you're close enough to hit all of them. Generally, though, not really what I'm looking for, but if you are a fan of this archetype, you've got Discord in the right column. You could take that with something like Clown or Demo, or you could take Clown Cartridge with Reservoir Burst. That sounds pretty fun. Or Crystalline Corpse Bloom as well. Just, it's okay. Horizontal Spread's not generally the best archetype, unfortunately. Now, we also have an aggressive Glaive, which is the Heron. This is a Void Glaive, as if we don't have enough Void Glaives already. Here is another one. This one isn't aggressive, so Typically lower shield duration. You can bump that up if you want to get it up into the 60s. That should be pretty possible. And then I'm not too enamored with any of these rolls on it. You do have ancillary ordnance, which is generally only on kinetic so far. Being built into a void weapon, you can charge it with this weapon and also discharge it because it goes off on a kill when it's charged, and it charges with rapid elemental kills. So if you're shooting enemies and killing them, that will charge this. I feel like if you are doing that though, you're better off just taking redirection. Even destabilizing rounds is probably better. And if you just want damage, Unstoppable Force is very consistent. Replenishing Aegis will let it be. You never have to reload as long as you're blocking damage. Disruption Break is also a good one just for buffing kinetic damage. If you're running this in double special, this can be pretty good with the lightsaber. Lightsaber is kinetic. This will buff it 50% if you break a shield with the glaive. And then you got Lead from Gold if you really want to build into the ammo gen. But this is kind of what I recommend for a Void Glaive, and it's not super interesting, unfortunately. Now, we do have another solar grenade launcher coming out. This one's going to be our Area Denial. This is our first solar Area Denial. Very cool on paper. Heal clip on a Area Denial sounds really good until you think about the fact that by the time you are getting a kill with the pools that you've spawned, you have probably already reloaded. So you need to fire a second shot to reload your heal clip for the first shot. I wouldn't really recommend working on heal clip in my mind. Maybe in the right situation, this will be different and you'll kill them fast enough to get heal clip. But in a situation where you want heal clip, you want something that will kill instantly and reload quickly, this isn't that. What this does do that is unique, that I really do like here, is Master of Arms auto-loading. You, by the time the pools are done doing their thing, should be auto-loaded. And Master of Arms will scale the damage with kills with the grenade launcher or your other weapons. So if you fire the pools into a group of enemies and then you get kills with your other weapon and they're weakened by this thing, or you get the kills with this thing, you can stack up to 25% with that Master of Arms times 2, and you'll have a couple of seconds, things like 11 seconds with both stacks, of damage buff. And that's just generally like a strong thing to pull this out, get some decent damage in. Most Athanor 4 is a PvP drop. This is a 120 RPM Void Hand Cannon. 120s are pretty solid. The stat spread is no Igneous Hammer, unfortunately. If you're going for PvP, I think Keep Away, Slideways, maybe even Moving Target are your picks. Lone Wolf, also not bad. And then you've got things like Precision Instrument or Eye of the Storm and Opening Shot, all great picks. In PvE, you got like one real combination that's destabilizing rounds, Demoralize. Double Duty Void Synergy, great combination, double splash in some ways. You can obviously drop Demoralize for something like Sword Logic if you would prefer, and I wouldn't blame you for that. That would be a great pick as well. Horror's Least has returned, and it is a Pinnacle Ops weapon, so you can go ahead and look for this. This is an arc rapid fire frame pulse rifle. Has a bit of PvP, bit of PvE rolls. If for PvP, you got Kill Clip. You've got things like Heating Up and Zen Moment, which are all great picks. And for PvE, which is where I prefer to take most of my weapons, you have Trickle Charge, which will give you reloading per bolt charge stack that you get, or discharge. Very, very strong this season. And you've got Supercharged Magazine, which will auto-load you while you are amplified or while you have Speed Booster. Both very interesting picks. Overflow is also a decent one here. We don't have Volt Shot, but you do have Jolting Feedback, so I feel like Overflow is a great pick with Jolting Feedback. Buffed Rampage is also here, or Rolling Storm if that is your go-to pick. As a neutral Berk, you can also just take Frenzy if you want a strong arc weapon with Trickle Charge, but personally, I'd probably go for Jolting Feedback or maybe Rolling Storm. Sarpedon D is a arc spread shot hand cannon, so we now have a second energy slot hand cannon here that has the spread shot frame to compete with our solar one. Obviously, Nutria Fera is very, very strong. This will be really good with arc builds, though. You definitely really like having Harmonic Siphon on, overtaking something like a different element, which is 3 energy cost. Kind of expensive to run. This does have all the 1-2 punch and trench barrel that you would want, as well as on top of that, Volt Shot. So if you want to have a Volt Shot shotgun hand cannon, you don't really care about the melee perks, you still get that. And these do really good damage to enemies. So just as a primary weapon, very strong weapons. Eddy Current, if you are playing on arc, you're going to be amplified a lot. Just take it. It's 60 reload stat with a reload duration multiplier as long as you're amplified. Very, very strong. Impromptu Ammunition, also a decent pick. And again, Trickle Charge, decent pick. If you're not going to be on arc, probably go for something like lead from light or impromptu ammunition. It's not super hardcore either way, but obviously 1-2 punch is most likely your go-to on this. Sidearm of 4, great pickup here. This is our first energy slot rocket pulse, so I would go ahead and pick that up if you can. Almost any of these is going to be better than anything else you could run in that slot if you're trying to have a mint replacement. If you're looking to use this thing for boss damage, I think honestly you're going to be looking to use something like Trickle Charge, and Elemental Honing is like your only real pick in the right column for a traditional damage perk. If you're looking for something to hit bosses, champions, or other such tanky targets, and that's what you want to use it for single targets, those are your picks. If you're going to be doing champions, maybe you could get away with One for All, since you can hit 3 different targets, even if they're red bars, with 1 burst, depending on how good you are at that. Like, tell me how likely it is. But worst case scenario, probably 2 hits, or 2 mags, or 2 shots would get you that One for All proc. That would be a decent pick. Trickle Charge probably will do its thing fast enough that you don't have to reload. Kind of emulating rewind rounds on Mint, but not quite. Honing is your only traditional damage perk. You're going to have at least a second element because you can run a Strand or Stasis weapon for that 10% damage. You need some more, like a different energy weapon, or sorry, a different heavy weapon with a different energy type. That would get you to 20%, and then maybe you can work in some abilities. But if you're on Arc and you're using Arc and you are trying to surge match or scavenger match, then you're not really going to get a lot out of honing, even just doing that. In that case, maybe Jolting Feedback's just the play. Adrenaline Junkie is great in the grenade build, and you can do that with like Blast Distributor. But I think if you're on Arc looking for boss damage, or if you have somebody with you who can use Storm's Keep for boss damage, Trickle Charge Honing, great pick. If you're on Arc and you just want something for general use, like an Eddy Current, Jolting Feedback seems pretty strong. And if you're on any other class, that Eddy Current's not really going to be a pick for you. Yes, you could do a Stats for All, One for All, but Blast Distributor, Adrenaline Junkie seems pretty strong. Or maybe just Blast Distributor, Jolting Feedback would be great for like roaming content. The Martlet is a Trials weapon, I believe. And this is a Void Rapid Fire Pulse, so a 450 frame, unless that's lightweight. I think it's lightweight frame, my bad. Lightweight pulse rifle. This is decently interesting. It's got Headstone or Head Seeker in the left column. So if you want to do that with something like Zen Moment or Desperado, you can. Also got Kill Clip. All of these are great picks in PvP. That's kind of what I would go for because Head Seeker is kind of a free pick. In PvE, uniquely, this is Firefly on a Void weapon, so you can get some Solar and Void going on. And you can take that with the stabilizing rounds for double splash. I think that sounds pretty fun. Like, you could do Repulsor Destabilizing. We've got so many Repulsor Destabilizing. Repulsor Withering, maybe a little bit more unique. And a lot of primaries get Withering Repulsor. But Firefly Destabilizing, totally unique to a Void weapon. Or even just maybe Firefly Sword Logic if you want damage with a Void weapon, but you're not really concerned about Void synergy. Not a bad pick if you just want raw damage. Next up, Oxygen SR3, another reprise. This is a Pinnacle weapon. This is where we see the return of Meganura, really. There's going to be a couple other weapons that get it, but for those of you who do not know what Meganura was, it used to improve Dragonfly. Now, it is a Dragonfly clone. So, when you get a headshot kill, you get an elemental explosion that matches your damage type. I think at base, it should do the same damage as Dragonfly. The difference being Meganura will increase the damage based on the number of headshots you get before you kill the headshot kill. So if you get 3 hits, it should max out the damage buff. And I don't have the exact numbers. I believe it used to be 150%, but it may have been more than that, honestly. I don't know if the current version is matching that or nerf. They didn't really mention what they were doing with that. However, I think this is a great pick. It is a uniquely damaging splash perk. Like, it should be very, very strong. Not many other weapons get it. And you can combine that with Shoot to Loot. So you can have a Shoot to Loot will explode with Mega Neura and pick up bricks that are nearby the enemy. You could always go for something like One for All if you would like. Burning Ambition's also here, which is pretty interesting on a scout. You do have Heal Clip if you don't care for Shoot to Loot, but I think your picks are Shoot to Loot or Heal Clip. My pick is Shoot to Loot. And then your picks are Mega Neura or Burning Ambition, probably. Next up, we have Evening SI4. This is a 3-round burst sidearm. Nothing super special here for me. Like, we got Heal Clip Burning, Heal Clip Burning Ambition, Heal Clip Incan for PvE. Kind of classics. You've also got something like Lone Wolf for PvP with Head Seeker, and that's fine. I think a Heal Clip Sword Logic for clearing through chaff. Just want to heal and kill things as fast as possible. That's a really good combo, but not a super special weapon to me. This is a good shout. This is a Void Heavy Crossbow. Heavy crossbows have been gaining popularity. I've been a big fan of them since we got them. I think a lot of people slept on them, and then damage testing has shown that they are pretty good. And obviously you can pick the bolts back up, and that just creates infinite damage for your heavy. So in certain scenarios, this is a very, very strong pick. And with Void Hunter getting a Mobius Quiver buff that buffs bows, now you can surge match while you're on Void with harmonic siphons and harmonic loaders and all that jazz to create a very strong bow weapon that is legendary, that might be able to compete with Leviathans, maybe not, but it wouldn't eat your exotic slot, right? So what does this give you that the other crossbows don't? So what does this give you that the other crossbows don't? I will tell you, it gives you Envious Arsenal, which is kind of crazy. Envious Arsenal obviously improves your ammo generation a little bit, but the main thing being that if you do a rotation, you just don't have to reload this thing, and the reload on these is pretty slow even when you jack it up. This being the first one to get Envious Arsenal means you can really create interesting damage rotations with this. Now, it doesn't have a super traditional damage perk in the right column. Some of the other ones have like honing. I don't think they have bait and switch, but they have like regular traditional damage perks like Vorpal or stuff like that. This does not. You do get box breathing if it really delays your damage, so I don't think even post buff it will be that worth it. You have something like destabilizing for ad clear or rampage for damage. There's a lot of ad clear perks in here. However, for damage, if you want to use this for damage, Envious Arsenal is a big pick, and I think you have to take high ground. As long as you're able to position correctly and you are thinking about it while you are doing it, you can set up high ground to build your stacks up to that 25% damage buff for being above your target. And that is a reasonable damage increase, all things considered. It's just 25% is not far behind bait and switch. It's just something you have to think about specifically while you are doing it. If you aren't going to use it for boss damage, if you're using it for regular ad clearing or major clearing, you're going through a GM, you're going through the portal, then you can consider things like maybe Withering Gaze Butterfly, which would give you a weaken on hit, and then your next kill, as long as you stay ADS'd, will explode like Dragonfly. Pretty funny. Repulsor Brace Destabilizing, obviously decent picks. Demoralize, maybe, and a Envious Arsenal, Demoralizing Bolt Scavenger, all pretty useful. But really that Envious Arsenal is going to make this a damage pick. And then you can go whatever you want for roaming, because this thing one-shots red bars anyways. So for most majors and things like that, you can ramp something up like Rampage or High Ground and be ready for them. Quavictus 4 is a Strand machine gun, is a 360. Not my favorite archetype. Some people like 360s. I'm not a huge fan. If you do want this does get Mega Neura Hatchling, which is a pretty cool roll, I think. Double splash. You can alternatively go for a triple tap Mega Neura, or to get rid of Mega Neura all entirely and go for Killing Tally. Maybe a triple tap rewind rounds could be pretty interesting for a 360. It's not anything standoutish in my opinion, though, unfortunately. Micro Mort, a little more interesting. This is a void rocket. This is an arc rocket with a precision frame, so it does a little bit less damage than something like a high impact or an aggressive. It is not as far behind as it used to be. These have been buffed several times. They're basically a marginal damage loss for the tracking. that if you have a good perk combination that it's worth running, this does have Cluster Bomb and Bait and Switch. I wouldn't recommend just taking this for Envious Arsenal unless you need an Arc Rocket. I think there are other Envious Arsenal rockets that do just as well. If you want a Cluster Bomb, a Bait and Switch rocket, which would compete with something like Heathens if you don't have a Heathens, or you want something that needs tracking, if you're doing something like Ghosts of the Deep where the boss moves a lot and tracking is helpful, Cluster Bomb, Bait and Switch is a unique enough thing to work with the new Sentinel Shield that I would consider keeping a roll of that just for Sentinel Shield use. Otherwise, Envious Arsenal, Bait and Switch is obviously your top pick here. So if you need an Arc Rocket with that, there you go. 86 is a Vortex Frame Strand Sword. Drops in the portal. Gets Bray Legacy. It's a Vortex Frame Sword. It's nothing crazy. We've had so many Strand Vortex Frame Swords, it feels like. You get redirection on this. So Relentless Redirection's probably the play, maybe. Other than that, I wouldn't consider really taking this for much else. If you don't already have a sword, it's hard not to have one for damage. If you need something, maybe Honing. Honing Relentless is probably it. Peculiar Charm is a PvP SMG, which I did not pull up on Foundry. It looks like I will have to. It is a 4-round burst kinetic SMG. Instead of pulse rifle, this is an SMG. It is 600 RPM, so I assume it does the same amount of damage as a regular 600, but maybe not. You do get some useful perks here for PvP. Obviously, your origin traits are stocks here because it is a comp weapon. It is made more to be a PvP weapon. You do have something useful here like Lone Wolf or Rapid Hit, which is kind of what I would be considering is Rapid Hit. And then maybe Desperado or more likely Headseeker for trials or something like that. For PvE, you got Attrition Orbs, good pick. Shoot to Loot on an SMG, pretty strong in general. But I like Shoot to Loot with like K-Tremors. That's a great pick. Or you could go Attrition Orbs, K-Tremors and go for that multi-mock roll, just on a different archetype. You also have Firefly in the right column, so you could go for a Firefly Attrition Orb or a Shoot to Loot Firefly. That's an interesting perk combination, I think. You've also got Bewildering Burst here if you want the Flashbang, Master of Arms. Generally, that stuff I'm not super going to say is relevant. For Iron Banner, we have Ragusk's Pledge. This is a 720 Void RPM, or 720 RPM Void Auto Rifle. If you do not have Reckless Oracle, this is your replacement. You get Destabilizing, you get Repulsor Brace. You got the Void combo, that's it right there. You could do Demoralize Repulsor if you want, or you could take Demoralize with something like Golden Tricorn, Attrition Orb, Target Lock, or Destabilizing in place of Demoralize. More of a PvP-ish weapon. There's not really a ton of great PvE options here, except for that Stabilizing Repulsor. You got maybe something like We Wind Rounds, or if you're in PvP, just take like a Dynamic Sway Target Lock, and that's probably a great pick, maybe Kill Clip. The Immortal is also reprised from Trials as a Strand 900 RPM, Strand 720 RPM SMG. It does return with its Target Lock Dynamic Sway roll or Keep Away roll, depending on what you like. Attrition Orbs is here in the left column, and for PvE purposes for the most part. Or you could do something like Hatchling Master of Arms, maybe Hatchling Demo. It does have Slice. You don't have Tear on this, which probably would have been a nice pick for a Strand weapon. That's kind of what people, I think, take. But Master of Arms is like your best right column perk IMO, unless you're going to take Demolitionist. Corundum Hammer is a Strand Trials weapon. Again, another Strand weapon for Trials. This is a 140 RPM hand cannon, and it's like the first good 140 RPM hand cannon. That's not Better Devils. Better Devils was okay. This gets my favorite thing, Shoot to Loot, Explosive Payload, the first hand cannon to get that roll since Vulpecula in Season of the Lost before Witch Queen came out. Alternatively, you can get like Firefly Explosive if you want the Fatebringer roll, or you can swap that out for a Elemental Honing, Keep Away, Sword Logic, Tear. If you want some strange synergy, you could do Firefly Tear, or maybe take that Firefly and replace it with something like Slice. Maybe a Slice Explosive Payload would be interesting. But realistically, for me, Shoot to Loot Explosive Payload, huge selling point for this, maybe Tear. because I believe Tear will also pick up the bricks, but it's a little less useful than something like Explosive. Astral Horizon is also returning. This is a kinetic aggressive shotgun. Not really in favor right now in PvP. You got slide shot, opening shot if that's what you want. PvE wise, I think you're looking at something like Lead from Gold, 1-2 punch, and then that's about it. You don't really have a trench. You've got flashbang on this if you want with Whirling Burst, but realistically, not super ideal for PvP or PvE IMO. Cataphract, also back for trials. This is a Strand heavy GL. It's not a rapid fire, it's an adaptive. So already it's on the back foot here. It does get Envious Bait and Switch, which was its classic role. Blast Distributor has been added here. And then that's it. You got Envious. I'm sorry, its classic was Envious Assassin, which you can do again. It does have Envious Arsenal now. On a Strand GL with Envious Arsenal Bait, you can get it, but it's not a rapid fire, which I believe is the grenade launcher meta. So still worth picking up, but not a must pick up. King Orfeo, this is a event weapon, like one of those ones that get illegal mods. So if you don't want to look into like super spoilery stuff, this is where we get into more of the spoilery weaponry. This will come with the new Nail Meets Hammer origin trait, which increases ammo gen for whatever weapon has it, or special and heavy for primaries, or just heavy if it's a special weapon. This is an arc precision frame bow, so it's not the fastest firing, it's kind of the middle of the road one. You get shoot to loot on this, shoot to loot jolting feedback, kind of cool. Archer's tempo, jolting feedback, obviously still a good pick. You do get Mega Nura, which is unique, but I don't really want that on a bow. It already gets Dragonfly, so they compete pretty much for the same damage. Mega Nura should just be better, unless there is something that we don't know since we haven't tested it yet. Obviously, you could take something like Archer's Tempo, Mega Nura, and that would be interesting. You do also have Explosive Head in the left column, so you could go Explosive Head, Jolting Feedback. I think that's a good pick for this. Or Archer's Tempo, Jolting Feedback. Probably like 2 to 4 hits on a bow for the Jolt. We don't have testing on this. That's my guess, 2 to 4. Shoot to loot is more unique here, and I think for like a shoot to loot jolting feedback bow sounds pretty strong. Maybe you would prefer Mega Nura on that, maybe you'd prefer Dragonfly, but there's not another traditional damage perk in the right side apart from like Precision Instrument, which did a little slow, or maybe Swash if that's your thing. Action item is a Stasis Trace Rifle from the illegally modded stuff, weapons. Was it Arms Week weapon? This gets Rhyme Stealer Detonator Beam. That's probably the pick. If you're on Stasis, you probably have a way to make crystals or do freeze, and I think Detonator Beam with Rhyme Stealer is going to be the best pick if you're on Stasis. If you're not on Stasis, and you're not looking to do Frost Armor build, then I think Crystalline Corpse Bloom, because if you still want that Stasis integration, Crystalline Corpse Bloom with Rewind rounds is pretty good. Or if you just need a decent trace, Rewind with Detonator Beam is also pretty good. I feel like Corpse Bloom is going to be better than Headstone just because Trace Rifle targeting just sometimes will randomly hit a body shot at the very end. So it's more reliable to get the rapid kill because it does chew through red bars. Gizmo Weft is a very big weapon. Not because it's like super unique in terms of its frame, like it's a micro missile frame and a kinetic slot. We have Mountaintop, but what this does, the Mountaintop does not do, or any other micro missile frame does not do, is get Envious Arsenal or some damage rotation shenanigans. You want to combine this with Finality's Augur or Anarchy. This is like an option. I would love to see what this does in a rotation. It also gets Bait and Switch and Honing, depending on your choice. As a Strand weapon, this will be 35% with Honing instead of 40%. So Bait and Switch is a bit closer to what you would see. Generally, super cool roll that Envious Arsenal Bait and Switch for some rotations. Also gets Bipod in the right column on a GL. First time we're seeing it on something that's not a rocket. So that could also be super fun to play with. Permafrost is a Dawning weapon. This is a Stasis wave frame, and it gets Reaper's Tithe, which is probably my best pick here. Super cool in a wave frame to get a perk like that. And Blast Distributor, which will give you up to 13 grenade per hit, up to 5 stacks if you are enhanced. And that's pretty sick. Maybe if you want to build in the Stasis, take Rhyme Stealer or Corpse Bloom. That is totally fair. But Reaper's Tide Blast Distributor just sounds like a really fun combo. Mistral Lift will be returning. It is going to be Envious Arsenal bait and switch for my go-to role. You're going to be using this for boss damage as a 3-round burst void linear fusion rifle. That's kind of what you're signing up for. If you want something that can do weaken for your team, then maybe take Withering Gaze Rewind rounds. Like, that's a decent combo for that. But realistically, you are going to want to be doing as much damage as possible, and that is just Envious Arsenal and bait and switch. Also from Dawning, you have Fimbulwinter Stitch. This is a precision frame sidearm. My opinion, worst sidearm frame. It is arc. If you are down for that regular primary ammo, slow firing sidearm, you've got Volt Shot or Jolting Feedback or Rolling Storm or Redirection on this thing. All of those could be good. In the left column, you got Rapid Hit and you got Trickle Charge. That's pretty much it. Maybe Collective Pugilism. This is one of the only ones that gets collective in the left column. But I'd say you're probably looking at Trickle Charge and Jolting Feedback, or maybe Redirection. Redirection could be pretty funny. But it just has unique roles. This is a strong sidearm, but it is a 260, and I think that archetype is just like one of the weakest primary types in the game. So if you like those precision frame sidearms, be my guest. This thing could be pretty strong. And that is, I think, every weapon that we have added for this expansion, not counting the dungeon weapons since they're not out yet. If I missed anything, please let me know down below. I did open all this up and then, change computers and open new tabs and open up another window. So maybe if something might have gotten lost in transition, if I missed a weapon, let me know and I will, leave a comment and pin a comment that talks about what it should have. But generally speaking, there's a lot of decent weapons that are coming out, a lot of things with unique niches, but also a lot of garbage, a lot of things that are just poor archetypes, unfortunately. And that's just how it is these days. Let me know what you think of these weapons. If you got anything that you want to look into and talk about next, let me know, and maybe we'll talk about it down below.